This 17 News at Noon podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to 17 News at Noon podcast, where we share your news on your schedule. Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us for 17 News at Noon. I'm Nicole Gitsky. Well, some might call it the recall that wasn't. NBC News and the Associated Press both projecting that California Governor Gavin Newsom has defeated an attempt to remove him from office. Frustration with COVID-19 restrictions helped recall organizers gather the roughly 1.5 million signatures they needed to force the vote. But in the end, the state's Democrats showed up in droves to back Governor Gavin Newsom. Now, he thanked them for their support in a late-night speech. Take a listen in.
And so I'm humbled and grateful to the millions and millions of Californians that exercised their fundamental right to vote and express themselves so overwhelmingly by rejecting the division, by rejecting the cynicism, by rejecting so much of the negativity that's defined our politics in this country over the course of so many years. Democracy is not a football. You don't throw it around. It's more like a, I don't know, antique vase. You can drop it and smash it in a million different pieces. And that's what we're capable of doing if we don't stand up to meet the moment and push back.
Some Republicans have already begun to sow seeds of doubt about the integrity of the vote, with former President Donald Trump calling the vote rigged and Newsom's top contender Larry Elder's campaign promoting a website that claimed it had found fraud in the results before any vote returns were even released. Well, while the governor defeated the recall election by a wide margin on a statewide level, the latest numbers show a majority of Kern voters wanted to kick Newsom out of office. 17's Moses Small has more.
Kern County Democrats cheering as NBC News and the Associated Press report the recall effort against Governor Gavin Newsom has failed. Many who voted no say they support the way the governor has handled the pandemic.
For the whole state, we can hopefully see less deaths, less COVID. He's mandated the mask for our protection, our safety, and we're going to beat this pandemic.
This comes as Kern County faces yet another wave of COVID-19 infections. The most recent state data says the local COVID test positivity rate more than doubles the state's average.
That means that we need to have mandates for masks. We need to increase our numbers of vaccinated Californians, and I think the governor had started on that course already.
But not everyone agrees. The latest data says a majority of Kern residents voted yes on the recall effort, many blasting the governor's pandemic response.
Families are struggling. We have millions of Californians, small, hard-working families who have lost their jobs due to government shutdowns initiated by the stroke of a pen by this governor.
Also, I think the extended shutdowns, longer than a lot of his other Democratic governor's peers, just prolong the economic suffering that so many people were experiencing.
Some voters supporting the recall say they don't believe the governor has done enough to tackle issues like wildfires and criminal justice.
What we've seen with Governor Newsom is a repeat of many of these failed policies. The highest tax rate in the country. People are just unhappy. Homelessness, crime, all these things that have skyrocketed under Governor Newsom.
Meanwhile, many who wanted to keep Newsom in office say his opponents would mishandle state laws.
We're seeing a lot of Democrats turn out. The fear of someone like Larry Elder, someone that wants the minimum wage to be zero, someone who is anti-choice, someone who is against the progressive values that California champions.
Meantime, it was a slim turnout for the recall election. Hours after multiple media outlets called the race in favor of Governor Gavin Newsom, Mary Bedard and other election officials continue to count those ballots. Now, multiple officials said voter turnout was lighter than expected at the elections office, and it seems to be the same story across the county. Now, as of 1 a.m. this morning, votes counted by election officials represented just 20% of registered voters in Kern County. It's one of the lowest county percentages in this election in the state. 27% of ballots mailed to registered voters in Kern County were returned before Election Day, though that number 2 represents one of the lowest county totals in the state. Now to the latest on the coronavirus in Kern. Public Health reporting 675 new cases today, along with 5 deaths. More than 1,500 people in Kern have died from the virus since the beginning of the pandemic. At least 67 people died in August alone, making it the 7th deadliest month during the pandemic. This year is already deadlier than last year. Over 757 people have died from COVID-19 in 2021, more than the 753 people who died in 2020. Currently, our peak is set to hit this weekend, meaning this could be the worst weekend for healthcare workers. Now, Public Health says nearly 99% of people hospitalized with COVID-19 in Kern are unvaccinated. Right now, 336 people are in the hospital, 72 are in the ICU. Meantime, we are still waiting for Public Health to release updated information on the people who have died from COVID-19. It has been 148 days since local health officials updated the data showing information on who died from the virus. The information provides context to the deaths, including data on pre-existing conditions and age, among other things. Although data has been published for a vast majority of the deaths, 179 people have died from the virus since the last update. The data has not been updated since Kern's 3rd surge. Public Health says the data should be updated in, quote, the near future. Well, the past 2 years have been difficult for most, but for one local couple, they were looking forward to the exciting new beginning that 2021 had in store. Anthony and Mackenzie were high school sweethearts getting ready to start their family. Then, an unexpected and tragic plot twist forever changed their story.
It's hard, you know, like nobody, I don't think anybody gets pregnant thinking like, oh, I want to be a single parent. And you know, that's just a hand that we've been dealt. And it sucks because Anthony was just so excited to be here for him.
But this love story isn't over. Tomorrow morning on 17 News at sunrise, the new chapter for one woman as she deals with the loss of her longtime boyfriend while she raises their newborn. Now in your 17 Crime Watch, a bank robbery leads to a high-speed chase on Highway 99, ending in a rollover crash. And the Bakersfield Police Department says a person robbed the Wells Fargo on California Avenue just after 10:30. The robber took off in a vehicle and police gave chase traveling northbound on Highway 99 before the robber crashed north of Bakersfield. The driver of the vehicle was arrested. Now we're still waiting for more details from police and we'll update this story as we get that. And now to a homicide investigation out in Lamont. According to the Kern County Sheriff's Office, they were called to Habaker Road near Panama Road for reports of a person down. Officers say they found a man dead with signs of trauma. Homicide detectives were called to the scene to investigate. If you know anything about this, you are asked to contact KCSO at 861-3110. 4 Olympic gymnasts appeared on Capitol Hill today for a committee hearing on the FBI's handling of the Larry Nassar investigation. Now, Simone Biles, Allie Raisman, Michaela Maroney, and Maggie Nichols each testified about the abuse they suffered at the hands of the disgraced USA Gymnastics doctor. They also detailed how FBI agents, along with the USA Gymnastics organization, quote, failed them and other victims. Biles broke down into tears as she shared her story.
I don't want another young gymnast, Olympic athlete, or any individual to experience the horror that I and hundreds of others have endured before, during, and continuing to this day in the wake of the Larry Nassar abuse. To be clear, sorry.
Take your time.
To be clear, I blame Larry Nassar, and I also blame an entire system that enabled and perpetrated his abuse.
In 2017, Larry Nassar pleaded guilty to abusing 10 of the more than 265 women and girls who came forward to say they were molested. He is serving up to 175 years in prison. FBI Director Christopher Wray and Justice Department Inspector General Michael Horowitz are also expected to testify. The 17 News at Noon podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.